This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we take a look at the political pieces we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 23rd of April 2020, and I am DM.
I am JM.
And I am GK. And in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, more cash in your pocket this month. In the Standard, Sanko on warpath after RUTO meeting. And in the Star, Governor Sanko, I don't know what I signed with Uhuru.
Wow.
Shall we begin with the Star?
Yes. So, Governor of Nairobi, Mike Sanko, has threatened to move to court to terminate the agreement signed to hand over functions to the national government, to the Nairobi Metropolitan Services that was created last month, I think it was. And he alleges that on Tuesday he wrote a long message, a long post on his Facebook page, and he says he was hoodwinked. He said that he wasn't given enough time to read the handover document. It was just given to him at the last moments. He was supposed to sign, raise no questions and what have you. He pledged as well not to allow cartels to take charge of the city, so he apologized to Nairobi residents for even handing over, thinking about it and doing it in the first place. He says that he has never been given a copy of the deed of transfer to date. And the Star is also trying to draw a correlation between the destruction of his sanitation booths, which he had set up over the weekend. These were destroyed, I think, on Monday and Tuesday in various informal settlements in various parts of the city. They're drawing a correlation there between his statement and the destruction of his booths.
So the governor has finally woken up from his trance.
Yes, absolutely, it appears.
He's finally woken up. The Standard is telling us the same story. However, they have a twist. They're saying that, or rather, they're alluding that Sanko came to this decision, or these decisions, after he had had a lengthy meeting in Karen with the Deputy President, William Ruto. And the Standard also says that the governor himself confirmed that he had a meeting with Ruto, although he said that the president was in the know about this meeting. Whether that is true or not, we do not know. And that they discussed many issues affecting the county and the country at large. But the Standard says that the meeting concluded with the statement, there will be no turning back. I don't know how they know that the DP's meeting ended with there will be no turning back. But the Standard is really implying that the Deputy President is rocking the boat, muddying the waters, and causing trouble in paradise.
But this is what annoys me. Uhuru had a perfect chance to let an impeachment against Sanko run its course. He intervened and sort of came to this ceasefire, which meant a transfer. And this is always the thing we see. Raila swears himself in, it is treasonous, then there's a handshake.
But maybe the president was trying to kill two birds with one stone. Maybe in addition to capturing Nairobi, the administration of the city, he also wanted to co-opt Sanko, because remember, we were just at the brink of the BBI, and Sanko does come with a lot of influence. So he has this constituency that would work in BBI's favor if Sanko brings them on board.
So we now have a situation where Sanko and the DP are on one side, and they're trying to fight the system. However, I would say the system has something in its hand. It has legal opportunities and strategies to get rid of the two. You have Kim Morara scandals, you have a jail sentence that was never finished by Sanko, you have so many little corruption things, and if you apply what Putin does in Russia, you do the legal squeeze. So they come at you politically, you go for them using the legal route.
Jugular. GK, just today I think they said that the Ruai land is being confiscated from the DP, and I think that is in the same vein.
All of which you've mentioned are as well the political advice of Niccolo Machiavelli in The Prince. He says, would you rather as a leader or as a prince be feared or loved? And if he says, you should be feared and loved in equal measure. And this it indicates that Uhuru right now he's not feared so much by Sanko. So as you're saying, GK, maybe what Uhuru should do is squeeze him a little bit, as Philip Leakey told us during the burial of Moi. Unatoa watu pumzi kidogo kidogo.
Unatoa pumzi.
But also slow puncture. This is what Uhuru should now do to Sonko.
The other moral of the story, JM, do not vote for a hooligan for governor, because he will not read important documents before signing them on behalf of you 4 million Nairobians.
Exactly. So we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? So I quite like the Sanko on Warpath after RUTO meeting. I also am partial to the Stars headline. So let's park both. Look at the Daily Nation. Daily Nation is telling us we will have more cash in our pockets this month, which is, I'm sure, welcome given all the stoppages we've had with the economy recently. So the proposed tax reliefs will benefit the low income as well as the very high income earners. And the reason I'm saying that is because we already know that for those earning 24,000 and below, you're going to make some savings. So, but for those earning higher amounts, those earning 100,000, you will now allow a savings of about 5,800 through your payee. Those making between 200 and 300,000 will save 10,000 to 15,000 shillings. Those earning 1 million, lucky you, will save about 50,000 shillings. The issue with this tax relief is that it basically targets very low income and the very high income. Those are the people who will make those savings. The people in the middle, who are the large majority, aren't being cushioned by these tax reliefs. So a lot of the federations and the private sector alliances are coming together and saying a government needs to go a step further. We need these lifeline funds, not only just to protect the low income, but to cushion small, medium enterprises. Because those are the people who are hiring a majority of people. And we've seen countries such as the UK, Denmark, Netherlands come in to say we will cushion salaries and all sorts of benefits for SMEs. And so government needs to think a little bit about this, but also think about scrapping things like the turnover tax, because it means that even if you're making losses in this period, you may still have to pay taxes. So we need to think about some of these things. And I think government needs to just think a little bit more about that. So who do we give our winning headline? I quite like the Sanko ones, but let's hear what you guys have to think.
I think the Standard is very
on Warpath,
it's very sensational.
JM?
I agree.
Okay, great. We can give Standard our winning headline. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy? Shall we begin with the Daily Nation? In the Daily Nation, we have a police van or truck, and in it you can see little eyes. And outside is a policeman with his rungu, and he's about to play a game, spin the wheel. And spin the wheel, the options are, will you get a bribe or will you get a bribe? Will it be quarantine for you or will you get a beating? And those are the only 3 options available to Kenyans.
You know what they should have added for more humor? They should have added an option of all 3 in one slice.
All 3, because there's some people getting all 3.
There's some people getting all 3. But then the bribe is turned into theft. So they detain your belongings as well.
And I think the sad side of this is that I think about 6 people have died since this curfew began. And maybe even more that we don't know about in this bid to enforce these rules. Very funny.
It's very funny. It's accurate because yes, the police are being very arbitrary in the execution of the law. But then it's also inaccurate because once you get the bribe, I think it should just have been bribe. Then which says, will you get the beating or will you get the quarantine?
That's true. So can we move to Gado?
Yes. Gado has the President of the United States, Donald Trump, standing next to a hooded KKK figure, and on his chest there's a sickle sign, which is a USSR symbol, but because it means China because they're communist, and behind there we know this because of the Chinese flag, and behind Trump is the American flag, and it says Trump surrenders another leadership role to China. So I suppose Gado is alluding to the rampant racism against black people that is happening in China. And because Trump has been known to say racist things and do racist things, then he's saying that he has temporarily conferred that function to China.
Wow. I don't know if I'm a fan of this one. But okay.
No, I'm not.
I always like Gado because he has depth, and here he has said no lies.
That's true.
Right.
In the Star, we have a limousine with newlyweds inside, Mbadi and Sanko. But Sanko wants to leave the car. He's saying, "Stop! I want a divorce." And guess who the driver is? It's the president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, Ozone is telling us that this was an arranged marriage, and it was arranged by the driver.
And are you seeing the trash cans that are attached?
And the trash, I guess a commentary on the state of Nairobi, the filthy state of Nairobi.
You know what? Kudos to Sanko. I think I'm on his side with this one.
Yeah.
You earned the votes. You have the right to govern Nairobi and do it.
And to act arbitrarily.
But Sanko is a charlatan, and he's been dealt with in charlatan ways by the national government.
I will say...
Anyway, let's see whether he survives.
I will say, though, that it's commendable. Sanko has done something that leaders rarely do, which is to own up to their mistakes and to apologize. As embarrassing as it is for them, Sanko
kudos.
did that.
So who do we give our winning cartoon?
I like Gado's, but it looks like I'm the only one who does.
Nah.
But I also like Ozone's.
I like Ozone's as well. The commentary with Sanko.
Yeah, let's give it to Ozone.
Yeah, there you have it. The Star gives us our winning cartoon. And what is our final thought?
Our final thought today is inspired by the book The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver, who is a statistician and a writer who specializes in analyzing baseball and politics and the elections. He's actually most famous for predicting the 2008 US presidential elections. He got 49 out of 50 states right in his prediction. So the book explains why so many expert predictions today fail spectacularly and what statistical and probability tools are more up to the task of predicting real-life world phenomenon. It tells us that more data doesn't always equal better prediction. That's what he tells us, which is actually contrary to what a lot of people think, because we always say data is king. But in fact, the book is called The Signal and the Noise for that reason. He says the signals are the few pieces of key information that are actually important, and then the noise is the vast amount of data that is available. So what you have to do is to sift through the data to get the valuable information. So the signal is the truth, and the noise is what distracts you from getting the truth.
I see.
So predictions are common in the public realm, as we know. Stock market analysts use it, meteorologists for the weather, sport commentators, all these people make a living out of doing predictions. But the author says that one of the most important realms of predictions is the economy. And people always think that this is the one place where predictions are going to be very specific. For the reason that it's crucial, it's important at the individual, at the company, and at the national level, at the global level even. And there's a wealth of data available. I mean, some companies produce up to 4 million variables or indicators a year just to predict the economy. But despite these factors, he says that economists have a terrible track record of forecasting. He says in 1999, he gives many examples, one of which is that in the 1990s, economists around the world were only able to predict 2 out of the 60 global depressions that happened. So one of the problems that Nate Silver points out is that that economists have is that when they're making predictions, they draw predictions from another set of prediction intervals. For instance, they will say that next year's GDP is predicted to rise by, let's say, 2.7%. However, they have derived this 2.5% from a larger set of predictions, which said that next year there's a 90% chance that growth will fall between 1.5 and 3%. And so they get that medium and present it as if it is something that is actually accurate, which is not. The other thing is that forecasting in the economy is difficult because it's a very complicated and dynamic system. So there's staggering amounts of information that are actually very interwoven. For instance, a tsunami all the way in Taiwan will affect whether somebody gets a job in Nairobi or Oklahoma or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he sets the stage in a very interesting way there.
He does. And so in chapter 2, he asks us, are you smarter than a TV pundit? So I'm sure around election time, or even just generally when you switch on the news, you'll find experts sort of giving their opinion and predicting certain events. And he says that, you know, rarely fine, we should be fair. A forecaster should not be based on, you know, one judgment or one prediction going wrong. However, he was saying for instance, many TV pundits predicted like Obama wouldn't win the McCain election, the one where he competed against McCain. And everyone said that McCain would win. But then Obama ended up beating McCain by over 10 million votes, or approximately there. And so a lot of people thereafter, you know, went on TV and would explain away the predictions they had made. They would say, you know, it was a change year and that's why Obama, you know, got this popularity swoop. Or they would say, you know, McCain had ran a very terrible campaign. So then he goes on to explore why sometimes political scientists and experts are getting predictions wrong across different fields. So for the example he gives is not many political scientists predicted the fall of the Soviet Empire, which is perhaps one of the most crucial events in the latter half of the 20th century. Like, why did no one see it coming? And he says it was hard to predict because few experts looked at many small pieces. They only looked at sort of one part of the picture and didn't piece together other parts. So they never looked at the fact that there was a weakening Soviet economy. They didn't look at the fact that the Russian economy was increasingly exposed to media and democracy, and so the population was opening up to these ideas of how a country should be ran. And they also didn't see that, you know, they didn't put together the fact that the other republics around the Soviet Union were revolting. They were starting to come and get their own awareness. And so all these things were happening in silos and nobody really put them together to see that the collapse of the Soviet Union was imminent. And so he then quotes Tetlock's book. We've done Tetlock before in Super Forecasting. And so this is another book he's done called Expert Political Judgment. And he concludes that experts, regardless of their field and occupation, when they forecast political futures, they tend to do so based on random chance. Like when you get it right, it's just random. And he says that this is because experts are grossly overconfident and terrible at calculating probabilities. So he says the right attitude for making these predictions is to be more foxy, to be more like a fox. So he gives two ideas. He says you can either be a fox or a hedgehog. And he gets this from an essay by Leo Tolstoy. And the passage goes, the fox knows many little things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. And so he says, hedgehogs are usually people who rely on one big idea or claim. They are type A personalities, very strong personalities. They're usually good on TV and they're very charming and charismatic, and they believe in one big idea. So he gives an example here of Freud and the idea of unconsciousness. And he gives the idea of Malcolm Gladwell and the idea of the tipping point. And the other one that he gives is Karl Marx and his ideas on the class struggle. Very strong, big ideas. And then he contrasts this with people who are like foxes. And foxes look at all the information available and then they tend to believe in many small ideas, but also taking a multitude of approaches towards a problem. So they don't get stuck on one big idea or one big claim. And they tend to be tolerant of uncertainty as well as dissenting opinion, which means that they can see the signal for what it is and sift away from the, you know, the noisy data. They know more about what they don't know, which makes their predictions more powerful.
Very interesting.
Wonder who the foxes and hedgehogs are.
Exactly.
Kenya.
Yes.
One of the profound things that Nate Silver tells us is that it's difficult, although it's difficult to forecast and to predict terrorist attacks, it's not impossible. And so Silver says it was actually possible to foresee the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center. And that's because data, he says, indicates that such large-scale attacks are actually to be expected roughly once every 8 years. And he attributes this to somebody known as Closet. So Aaron Closet is an American computer scientist who's currently a professor at the University of Colorado. And he, over a period of a few years, tracked the frequency and severity of terrorist attacks. And he basically arrived at a pattern, which is known as the Closet's curve. Basically, this curve shows that when attacks are grouped together based on how many fatalities they caused, and then their frequency is plotted, we see a predictable pattern where attacks become less frequent the more devastating they are. And so the Closet's curve indicates that an attack a large-scale attack such as that of the World Trade Center is bound to happen once every 8 years. And so if the government of the United States had been thinking along those lines and looking for signals to tell them that a large-scale attack was coming, that could have actually prevented the attack from happening. And he says one country that has practiced this from the 1970s is Israel. And what Israel does is they put all their efforts into preventing large-scale attacks. And that means basically they treat the small-scale attacks as something akin to mere crime. And so the result, he says, in Israel has been that no attacks have claimed more than 200 people at once.
200 people?
Still a large number, but I think here he was saying 200 relative to perhaps the case of the World Trade Center, which took over, I think, 2,000 lives or thereabouts. So every 8 years, once every 8 years, a large-scale attack is likely to happen.
Wow, interesting. So on a day where we had a winning headline from the Standard and a winning cartoon from the Star, I want to leave you with this. Distinguishing the signal from the noise requires both scientific knowledge and self-knowledge, the serenity to accept the things we cannot predict, and the courage to predict the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Prime Free to Air, and StarTimes. Have a lovely evening.